So what other things that people notice? So a lot of energy, better sleep, people where animals are living longer. Um, and
Here, I'll
what
share.
other reports?
Yeah. So, and we have to be careful. So I'll be careful as I tell this. So in the early days, I was here at the office on a Saturday, and this guy knocks on the door, and I was like, okay, that's weird. And I was by myself, but I answered the door, and it felt very clandestine. He's like, "Do you have any ESS60?" And I was like, "Yes, we do have ESS60. Come in," because we don't have a we don't have a retail, like we're kind of office warehouse space. And so he comes in, and I had to figure out how to sell the product to him, right? Because I was like, "Here, give me your credit card, and I'll go to the website and type in your information," because we're not a retail location. So he goes off, and I don't know. It was a number of months later. I was walking by, and I recognized him, right? Because a customer who visited, and the lady who works up front, Cassandra, tells me, "Hey, this is his third order. So not just the first order that I took, but this is his third order." And we were at that time we were running a special on 3 bottles, and he was ordering 3 bottles, right? So immediately I'm like, "This guy's going to have an amazing testimonial, right? Like this is a guy. Let me ask him. Hey, so what's been going on?" And it's kind of funny because he was like, he felt bad because he was like, "Well, I haven't really noticed anything." I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting. Maybe you just want to keep taking it because these rats live longer, right? Like that's a legitimate reason to keep taking it." And then he goes, "Well, does it help with arthritis, right?" I can't say that our product helps with arthritis, but I told him, I mean, we've had people tell us that. I don't know, right? We can't make that claim. And he goes, "Well, that's up." Also, I had this click, click, click in my knee, and that's gone. And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's great." And he goes, "I haven't been jogging for, I don't remember the specific, like some number of years. And later today, I'm going for like my third jog, like back to back." Right. So he's picked up jogging again. It's kind of reminiscent of cleaning the garage, right? Like had the energy to do these things. And in my head, I'm going, "Well, I'm sorry you haven't noticed anything." And then he says, and I have to share this, "At my work, I feel less stress." And let me be very clear. It's the same job. It's the same people. It's the same stress. I just feel less stress. And I'm like, "That's amazing." And again, maybe it's just the better sleep. If you've got better sleep, you're going to jog more. You're going to feel less stress, right? You're able to handle your emotions significantly better when you get a proper night's sleep. Or maybe it's the positive impact that it's having on the mitochondria, which is driving the sleep and not the other way around.
How does it affect the mitochondria?
So I think the value is when the mitochondria is pushed, and there's so many things that cause stress in our life right now, right? Like whether it's just UV radiation, whether it's, I'm sitting with some lights and a bunch of monitors and with computers running and a cell phone next to me, whether it's that stress or whether it's the emotional stress, the stress of our job, we're constantly under stress, and that puts the mitochondria to function more. And the more stress we put on, the more reactive oxygen species that it's created. I mean, think about the mitochondria as you might think of any energy source. And this is not really a source, but a car going down the road, it's got exhaust coming out of it. A power plant with a smokestack, it's got smoke coming out of it. And the mitochondria creating that energy has these reactive oxygen species. And so this going in and acting as that boss, that buffering oxidative stress system, that's the thing that we believe supports, is how it supports, ESS60 supports the mitochondria.
Has there been any research showing its effect on mitochondria?
So not yet. And those are actually, I've been, you participated with the longevity summit. We'll probably mention that at some point. And I've been so busy with that. Coming out of that, it was like, hey, there's probably some mitochondrial studies that I could do that are pretty inexpensive. I mean, at this point, we're a small operation. A full scale human trials just, it's not in the budget, right? We'll try and get there. Our next step, and this is how the scientific process is supposed to work, is somebody has a theory. In this case, ironically, it was that the molecule was toxic. Somebody does a study and then publishes the results, and then some other organization does that same study, right, to prove those results. We're 10 years later, that hasn't happened yet. And so that's our first goal, is like, let's do this kind of same, turned out to be a 5-year study on Wistar rats. We'll make a couple changes to the study because we think we can make improvements on even the 90%. And that's really the next step. And in order to do that, there's 4 studies that are really kind of regulatory agencies. And even if we want the product inside of Whole Foods or some large organization like that, there's particular studies that they want to have done. We've already got 3 of those done, and now we need to finish the 4th one. And then once that's done, we'll be looking at that study. But so no, we haven't looked at it. I will be looking at there are probably some inexpensive things that we can play around with. Oh, I can share. I did some biological age testing, right? So I did glycan age and I did MyDNAge, right? I don't know if you've messed around with those. These are kind of really fascinating, right? And I'll tell the story this way. So the first MyDNAge study I did was 3 years ago, and it said that I was 5 years older than I am, right? So my biological age was 5 years. I didn't like that test very much, as you can imagine. So then I did a glycan age test. I actually gave my blood, paid for it, and gave my blood at the biohacking conference, at Dave's biohacking conference in Orlando. And that came back, and I was 33 years younger than my chronological age, right? Wow. So a different test. That's really looking at inflammation. So my so-called chronic inflammation levels are extremely low, like a 21-year-old. I think I probably had more inflammation as a 21-year-old than I do now, but that's a different story, right? And then coming off of this longevity summit, I took another MyDNAge test. Now, I'm still unhappy with the result, but the result was, so when I took the first study, I was 51 and it showed me to be 59. I'm now 54 3 years later, but it showed me to be 58. So in 3 years, I've regressed 1 year, right? Yeah. And I don't like that the numbers are higher than my chronological age, but I like the direction that they're going. Right. And so we're looking to do more of those. We actually had a small study going with a doctor out of California. He called, he was excited. He was doing different protocols on really people around his office. And I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll pay for the test. And what we realized is, and this was a MyDNAge test, I believe, that test is extremely susceptible to like disease, like COVID specifically, right? So you get COVID and your biological age shoots up 10 years, right? Now, that's kind of, I look at that kind of a couple of different ways. One, it's a little depressing because you would like the test to be less susceptible to like a cold or a flu on a given day. But at the same point, you think about who was actually, who was dying when they were getting COVID. And it was actually the people who were elderly. And if you accelerated their age by 10 years, that would push them over the typical, human lifespan. So it actually also makes sense. But yeah, so those are some of the tests that we've done, and yeah, we're looking to do those kinds of studies. If you have any contacts or ideas about a reasonably priced mitochondrial study, then yeah, we'd love to do that.